be funny.
Equivalent ratios.
Brought to you by Ms. Z and Mrs. Cortez.
What
up? All right, so we're going to go over vocabulary first. We're working on equivalent ratios. It is Wednesday. You're halfway through the week, and we got this. We are going to go over these. You should have already gone over these standards and why we're going over this, but now you're going to see us again talk about the vocabulary. So we're working with equivalent ratios. Let's go ahead and break that down. First off, what does equivalent mean? Ms. Z, I know what equivalent means. I learned it in 3rd grade. Cool, awesome. We're going to review it again. Equivalent is when two or more values, numbers, or quantities are equal but are represented differently. And you should think about that, especially with ratios. They could be either people and a sandwich, boys or a girl. So those are two different things. But now you're going to take that one ratio and you're going to find something that's equal to it. Just wait, don't freak out, we'll get there. Now ratios, a way to show a relationship or compare two numbers of the same kind. You knew that. We went over it on Monday. Awesome, still wearing the same clothes for Monday. That's because I filmed on Monday. Okay, equivalent ratios. Ratios that are equal in value and meaning, but are represented differently. That means the numbers could be bigger than the original ratio, or it could be smaller than the original ratio. So you can go both ways. It's like if you zoom in on something, the person could either be really far away, or they could be really close. It's like different representations. So these are similar to equivalent fractions. We're going to do an introduction right now, and I'm going to use my multiplication chart on the Promethean board.
Yeah.
So first, I'm just going to look at 2 to 4, and these are our 3 ways. We can also write it with words, but at first I'm just going to go and I'm going to find 2. I'm going to find 2 on the multiplication chart, and I'm going to highlight it, highlighting all the 2's, okay? Then I'm going to go find 4, and I'm going to highlight all of the 4's. Okay, so when I'm looking at the ratio 2 to 4, I'm going to need to find the same ratio, the same difference, but as different numbers. So right here I see 2 and 4. And I'm going to change my color. And here you can see 4/8. Well, if you take 2 and 4 and then 4/8, that's the same ratio. It's just different numbers. Because if I can go up, I can go back down to the smallest ratio. Then if 6 and 12, that is the same type of ratio as 2 to 4. 8 and 16, same ratio. 10 and 20, same ratio. 12 and 24, same ratio. It means that it has the same difference. So let's say that I wanted to figure out what I multiplied to get 2/4 to be 4/8. Well, if I look up here and I look at 2, then I have 2/3, and what I multiply to the top, I multiply to the bottom. You learn that in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So I'm going to times 2 by 2 and times 2 by 2. Okay, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 2 is 6. So if you look, it has the same ratio, it's just represented bigger. It's represented with more. So all of these that are continuously going on, those are the same ratio, just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger numbers. The biggest number on this chart that I could represent 2/3 to as, or 2 to 3, is 24 to 48. Ms. Z, what are you talking about? That is the equal. That is equal, and we're going to try it again. Well, when the board works. Going up. Okay, 4 to 8. 4/8. 4 and 8. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the 4's like we did last time, and I'm going to highlight the 8's. Multiplication by 8. When I look at this, I know that 4/8 is my ratio that I'm examining, and I know that 8/16 is equal to 4/8. 12 to 24 is equal to 4 to 8. 16 to 32 is equal to 4 to 8. 20 and 40 is equal 4 to 8, and on so forth. So it just means that it's the equal. Those are equivalent fractions, meaning the ratio difference is the same. Do you have something you want to add, Mrs. Cortez?
No. Just remember the word equivalent when meaning
Is when two or more values, numbers, or quantities are equal but represented differently. So what we're telling you is that these have an equal ratio. They have an equal difference. It has the same amount. It's just represented as a bigger number.
yes. If you reduce the fraction 24 to 48 all the way down, it could be reduced to 4/8 as well.
So think about that. What if you had a fraction of 20 and 40? So this is connecting it to your 5th grade lessons. If you want to reduce, you know that you have to divide the top by something, you have to divide the bottom by something, and those are your common factors. So when I do common factors, I always make my numbers, I go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? What are those called? Base 10 digits! They're your base 10 digits. And so what I do is I go through, okay, can I divide 20 and 40 by 0? I sure can, but there's no point to. Can I divide it by 1? I sure can, but there's no point to. It's not going to be the smallest. It's still going to be big. What about 2? Can I divide 20 and 40 by 2? Yes, but I'm looking for the greatest common factor. Can I divide 20 and 40 by 3? No, you can't. No, Missy. What about by 4? Can I divide them both by 4? Yes, you can. Okay, so I can choose 4. All right, is that the biggest I can divide it by? Maybe. Let's check 5. Can I divide them both by 5? Yeah, you can. What about 6? Can we do 6? No, we can't. And so once we get that big no, it's going to be more likely that the 7 and 8 and 9 are not. So 5, we can divide them both by 5. 20 divided by 5 equals 4, and 40 divided by 5 equals 8. And what do you know? That was our original ratio. Mind blown. So, equivalent ratios just means that same ratio, but in bigger forms or smaller forms. So, what we're going to do now is I'm just going to show you how to figure out equivalent ratio without a multiplication chart. If you have a multiplication chart, which you made this morning during your morning board, you can always look.
It's also in your student planner. You have a multiplication chart.
Way to go, Miss Cortez.
Yes.
If you get stuck, you can always pull up a multiplication chart. If I'm stuck, I can always pull it up and be like, okay, Ms. D or Mrs. Cortez said 5/10. They want me to look at that ratio and find the equivalent fractions, or find an equivalent ratio. If you're stuck, pull up your multiplication chart, highlight 5, and highlight 10, and think, okay, I need to just find an equivalent ratio. She told me to find 3 equivalent ratios. Girl, I got this. These teachers don't even know I know, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to circle some. I'm going to circle 15 and 30. 15 to 30. Or 15 to 30. Or 15 over 30. Yeah. Okay. And now I want to do 40 and 80. So I can write 40 to 80. Or, I'm not going to continue all those. And my last one, I could do 60 and 120. Oh, Mrs. Cortez, you are impressed. Yeah, I would be if you came up with that. 60 and 120. And that's all you have to do. You're finding equivalent ratios using that multiplication chart. This is why we teach it. This is how it connects. Multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, those are all your fundamentals. Fundamentals to be able to do that higher math. And with that base 10 digits, you can always bring them up. You can always be like, oh, I want to make it by 3, 4, 5. That's always there. Okay? So let me show you how to do this without using a multiplication chart. And go ahead and push that up, make some weird squeaky noises. I'm gonna take my pen, and let's say I have 2 fourths. Okay, I have 2 fourths. And my teacher says you need to find at least 2 equivalent ratios. 2, 2, 4, okay? 2 different ratios, equivalent ratios. All right, so I could write this. I want to multiply it by 2. So what I'm going to do, because I'm going to go bigger, I can't really go smaller with this. So I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to say 2 times 2 and 2 times 4. Because what you do to the top, you do to the bottom. 2 times 2 is 4. And 4 times 2 is 8. That's it. That's my equivalent ratio. That's one of them. Now if I have 2 fourths again, and I need to find another equivalent ratio, I could easily multiply them. And these are just different ways to write it. You don't always have to. I can always multiply 2 by 4 and 4 by 4. And I can get 4 times 2 is 8. And 4 times 4 is 16. That is another equivalent ratio to 2 fourths. All you're doing is multiplying it by a number, and that connects back to up here. If I had 2 fourths, we have 4 eighths. But if I took 2 fourths and I made the board work, and I took this and I took 2 and 4, 2 and 4, and I wanted to, when I did the first one, I multiplied it by what? 2, Missy? Yeah, I did multiply it by 2. So I took 2 fourths and multiplied it by 2. Well, look, it's 4 and 8. Is that what I got? Yes, Missy. Awesome, okay. Well, and then the second time I did it, I multiplied it by 4. So then if you look here, I have this and I'm gonna multiply it by 4. Well, if I come down, it's 8 and 16, and that's what I got, 8/16. So all the equivalent ratios are just the same ratio made over and over and over again. So if I don't wanna look at my multiplication chart, that's one way. Now, another circumstance, and this is going to be a big one for you, is if someone gives you a number that you have to make it back into a unit rate. What is a unit rate? How do you know if it's a unit rate? If you don't know, I want you to pause the video and go look at your notes. Really do it. I'm not going to tell you right away. Look and pause. Welcome back. So, a unit ratio is when you have 1 in the bottom. Typically, this is connected with time, but when you want to make it a unit ratio, you have to kind of divide it back down. So that's an example of when you do it. Or if, let's say, someone gave you 25 in the numerator and, let's say 15 in the denominator, or 25 to 15. And they said that I want you to find the smallest equivalent ratio. That's just like simplifying it. It's just like simplifying a fraction. So all you have to do is take this 25 to 15 and kind of simplify it. If you don't remember how to do so, I'm going to show you, but it's the same concept. So I'm going to make my base 10 digits up top because it's always good to have them. That's why we taught them to you. And I'm going to look for the greatest common factor, the number that both of them have in common. I want you to think, what do these two numbers have in common? That's the largest. Yeah, 3 is 1, but 5 is even bigger, and they both have it in common. So I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide it. Divide by 5, divide by 15. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Okay. And 15 divided by 5 is 3. So the smallest ratio that can be made is 5 to 3. So You saw us go over the vocabulary. You saw us go over how the multiplication chart fits in, how you can multiply on its own, or how you can divide on its own. This is all you need to know for equivalent ratios in 6th grade. In 6th grade, it's all this. It's all showing the math, and it's all the pictures. So, if you're stuck, re-watch this video. If this video maybe didn't make sense to you, contact your teacher and we will help you. Or look at the other videos that are posted for you. Hope you guys enjoyed our math lesson. Peace.